Tracking near record heat across the West, I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods breaking down the timeline as well as the duration of this early spring event. Departures from normal kind of kicking it off here this week with readings about 5 to 10 degrees above average. Then as we start to head towards the weekend, that's when we really start to crank up the heat, and it's going to continue into early next week as well. Keep in mind that average high is 66, so we're going to be far off the mark here for quite some time. The reason why this building ridge of high pressure, it's going to keep the storm track to the north of us, and a big dome of basically sinking and warming air will be present across much of the west. That also is going to lead to a big drying as we head into this weekend and next week as well. No miracle March heading our way for right now. 8 to 14-day weather hazards outlook. The Weather Prediction Center pretty much puts us in that timeline here and that scope right through the east side of the state into Southern California, with the slight risk of seeing some of that well above average temperatures by the time we get into early next week. Again, this is just kind of the building phase as that high pressure ridge starts to move that storm track to the north of us. We're still seeing some showers through the Pacific Northwest, but as for California, a little low pressure system well off to the south is bringing some light showers. Nothing that's going to put a lot of rain in the bucket though, and we've really started to dry things out here. Even with that though, we're still largely above average for almost all areas throughout the state. One thing to note, Sacramento 1.36 behind. We had one day that we had some pretty decent rainfall and the monitoring station was down. So that's going to be a little bit off the mark there as far as the actual accumulation. Still growing deficit though, because that was just kind of a one-day event. As far as our Sierra snow water equivalent, we are falling well behind. We're closing the gap on that April 1st average, because that's pretty much the date that we start to see our snow fall go to the wayside and our snow melt outpaces that snowfall. So our average to date right now for the northern Sierra 34, 57 for the central Sierra, and 76 for the southern Sierra. That's going to put our statewide average to date at 53. Again, we're only about halfway to where we should be at that April 1st date. Our major reservoir supplies, though, still looking really good. This is going to be a multi-seasonal kind of situation here for our reservoirs, because we're able to store over successive years. And so water managers can really say, okay, we're not going to get a lot of storms. Let's hold back that water and release it only when necessary. Or if there's a big storm coming our way, then we can release some of that water to make way for the incoming snow melt. But at this point, what I'm seeing is these numbers are actually going up for capacity, meaning they're storing more water given the dry stretch that we've had, because March is still one of those months that we tend to get some pretty decent rainfall. We're kind of at that mark though where again we start seeing less in the way of snowfall, less in the way of rainfall as well. Average last day with 1 inch of rain or above is already in the rearview mirror. That was March 3rd. Average last day with a ½ inch of rain is April 15th. And again, we're only about 4 weeks away from that. The rainy part of the year is really starting to shrink. And you can see the rainy season. Here's the averages that we see in Sacramento. Our wettest months being December, January, and February, with March not too far behind at about 2.5+ inches of rain. Here's what we have been able to get so far in the water year. We were well above pace October and November. That's why we saw those huge gains coming in, especially statewide. But then December and January, even though we had some big storms in there, we just didn't have enough of them. February was a decent month. At least we picked up the pace a little bit. But now March, we've had nothing. And again, that's our 4th wettest month, because everything starts to dry out after that when we start to see less in the way of snowfall, more in the way of snow melt. We'll start banking that water when it's at its highest demand, because we really just don't get anything coming in, and the heat will go up as well. So evaporation will play a part in what's happening throughout our water supply system. Here's a look at that satellite and radar. Again, we got that weak little weather system moving through Southern California. A couple of sprinkles here and there, but that storm track is just in a very zonal flow. It's almost in a directionally west to eastern pattern here with nothing coming in. We start things off with a 5 to 10 degree jump above average under that ridge of high pressure, but there's nothing coming in that's going to prevent that from building even stronger by the time we get into the weekend and early next week. So this is going to be our first big presence of heat in the forecast all year long so far, because again, we're just coming off the cooler and wetter time of the year. Let's take a look at putting things into perspective. Spring heat. Earliest 90-degree temperature that we have on record is April 6th for Sacramento again, and that was back in 1989. But what is the average is very different. April 4th is usually our first 80-degree day. We are likely going to be hitting that by this weekend, and our first 90-degree day averages May 8th. Now, if you're looking way down the pipeline at that first 100-degree day, June 11th. Last summer was very mild, so it looks like we may be getting the opposite of that if this heat is any sign of what's to come here, because our 8 to 14-day climate outlook puts us in a very likely warmer outlook throughout not only the state, but throughout the entire West, and very likely a drier pattern as well. So that is going to be pretty much taking us through almost the end of March with a dry pattern. For this week, we're just kind of building the pace for increasing those temperatures. For the high country, we're in the 50s. Lots of snow melting up there. 60s and low 70s throughout the foothills. For the coast, we're looking at highs in the mid 60s to right around the low 70s. And again, throughout the Central Valley, the Capital Region, and the northern San Joaquin Valley, temperatures in the 70s. A lot of things are in bloom. We had some wind earlier this weekend, and now we're starting to see those winds calm, but we're going to see a lot of growth popping up with these types of temperatures. In the mountains, highs in the 50s and low 60s. In the foothills, we're climbing out of the 60s into the 70s, almost 80s starting to arrive. And then we've got 60s and 70s along the coast. Of course, the coast is going to stay pretty much status quo here. Not a huge jump in temperatures, but certainly on the warm side. Our extended outlook, we keep it mostly sunny. Highs are in the 80s for the upcoming weekend, but the real heat starts to come into play by next week. For St. Patrick's Day, a high of 88. All of these temperatures from Sunday through Thursday will be flirting with not only tying but breaking record highs. Of course, this is still about an 8 to 10-day outlook, so we'll continue to monitor this and see how close we get to those records and if it will be the earliest 90-degree temperature on the map in the Sacramento area.